Welcome back to Kari's Confessions, a nonprofit exec tells all. I'm Kari Anderson, principal with Incite Consulting. I've spent 25 years in the nonprofit sector in leadership roles with 7 organizations. Now, I provide coaching and consulting services to ensure that nonprofits, like yours, have the structure, systems, and practices to do your best work. Wherever I go, I continue to hear that nonprofit execs need a space to gather, to receive tools, feedback, and advice that encourages you to stay the course. It doesn't matter if you're in a village of 182 or a metropolis of millions, nonprofit work is both gratifying and lonely. I'm here to make sure that you have a chance to breathe, laugh, smirk, and get excited again about the important work that you do. Today's topic is strategic planning, why it matters, and tips for success. So a couple years ago, Nonprofit Pro reported that having a strategic plan significantly increases fundraising success. And who the heck doesn't need that? 86% of respondents said that having a strategic plan had a positive impact on generating revenue through grants, donors, and events. And on average, between 36 and 45% of their nonprofit's annual revenue was attributed to the presence of a strategic plan. Imagine, between 36 and 45% of your annual revenue. Regularly tracking a strategic plan strongly correlates with generating revenue. Respondents that regularly reviewed, revised, and measured their strategic plan were more than 6 times more likely to generate revenue as a result of their plan. I've seen the stats on this vary, but a while back I saw something that indicated that roughly 49% of nonprofits don't have a strategic plan in place. Is this you? So this is despite all of the research and work out there indicating the importance of strategic planning. So today I want to dig into this topic a little further, why it's important, how to overcome the barriers to making it happen, and best practices for success. So 3 takeaways from today's podcast. 1, let's actually define what it is so that it's not so scary for you. 2, benefits and barriers to strategic planning. And 3, tips for success, because that's where the rubber hits the road. So what exactly is strategic planning? Strategic planning usually refers to the event that happens when your staff, team, and board team, it's both, right? It's a team sport, come together for a session specifically to create, update, and address your strategic plan. The strategic plan is a guiding document created by the nonprofit's team, again, board and staff, that charts a path forward outlining short and long-term goals and assigning action steps to achieve them. The plan usually covers the time frame of 3 years, sometimes 5, but really 3 years, and inspires the team to think big and be visionary. Now, it should be noted, there's not a specific format for a strategic plan. Depending on your organization, depending on the strengths of the organization, depending on who you might contract with to help you with this process, your plan might show up in the form of a Word document. It might be a PowerPoint deck. It might be an Excel spreadsheet. It does not matter what the format is. What matters is that there's actually discussion, agreement, and alignment on where your organization is going and how you're going to get there. So what are the benefits of strategic planning? As I mentioned earlier, a strategic plan can drive more than revenue. Funding is an important part of a nonprofit strategic plan. Having a path forward towards diversified funding resources and increased revenue creates a framework for making better financial decisions. Strengthening the relationship between the board and staff. All staff and board members seldomly have a chance to be in a room together to share ideas and collaborate. Doing so builds trust and fosters healthy relationships among the 2 groups. Strategic planning helps with employee retention and satisfaction. Strategic planning gives a voice to employees. It demonstrates they are part of the future of the organization and that their input matters. Strategic planning increases efficiency and supports accountability. A strategic plan assigns action items and identifies what work must be accomplished. So I'm often asked, well, what happens after the planning session? And how do we actually ensure that the strategic plan isn't just a report or a piece of paper that sits on someone's desk and we pat ourselves on the back once a year? So once you've got this plan in place and once you've actually assigned responsible parties in order for the work to get done, the strategic plan drives your board agendas. It drives board committee work. It drives annual performance objectives for your staff. So it doesn't sit separately, right? It actually moves every bit of your organization forward. And the strategic plan is also not a static document, right? It can be updated, it can be revised, it can be changed based on benchmarks that you might have hit early or potential hiccups that you happen to have to address, right? And have to work through or around. Strategic planning also ensures that your programming is relevant and meeting the needs of the community that your organization is serving. Many of you may have programs or fundraising events that have been around for years and have not been evaluated, which is a cardinal no-no, right, in our sector. So having a plan ensures objectively that you are reviewing what you're doing to make sure that it still actually helps you fulfill your mission. I love including a SWOT analysis, that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, as a part of strategic planning. It gives you a chance to explore your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in an objective environment, fences down, right? And in doing so, you identify other organizations doing what you're doing, potentially overlaps in services, gaps in services, and it ensures your work is relevant in addressing a true need in your community rather than just a pet project. So strategic planning also helps to build donor confidence. A strategic plan is a demonstration of your organization's focus on sustainability and long-term service. Having a strategic plan to share with donors is a great demonstration of transparency and can build trust and support. A strategic plan charts a path forward. Planning helps you avoid mission drift and stays focused on what you're trying to do to move forward. In day-to-day operations, it can serve to remind you what's really important and help leadership prioritize their time accordingly, right? Many of us, including me, when I worked in the sector, would often overwhelm as to, oh my heavens, there are so many things to do, and not focus on the big things. Plan, for those of you who have difficulties saying no, allows you to use a document to say, we as a team have decided that this is the most important work, and this is the work I have to focus on. And I'm not going to focus on my task list, right? I'm going to focus on the big things that actually impact our community. So there are barriers, right? And it doesn't mean these barriers are not overcomable. It's just important to name them so that you can find a solution. There is an ongoing misperception that strategic planning is so expensive and that most small and medium-sized nonprofits don't have the money or shouldn't spend their money on this. And that is patently false, right? Strategic planning is an investment, right? We have to spend money to make money. And I absolutely bias here, right? Absolutely recommend 100% bringing in a consultant who does this, right, and is an expert in terms of facilitating. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. I certainly benefited from outside assistance when I was a staff member and board member, but it is an investment in the future health of your organization. If funding is a concern, be sure to focus on that heavily, right, in your session so you can find new ways to increase your funding in the future. And remember, oftentimes private foundations and certain philanthropists will absolutely fund organizational capacity building. That's strategic planning. And oftentimes their gifts can be used specifically to help fund consultants to help this work. Another barrier, it's way too hard to get everyone in the room at once. Yes, all your board members need to attend, and that can be hard to accomplish. It's important and it's got to be a priority. So where do we need to start? We cannot sugarcoat responsibilities of board directors. When board members are being recruited, they've got to know it's not just board meetings. It's not just board committee work. It's not just an annual board retreat. There will be a strategic planning session, and they do need to be there. Now, we need to get a date in front of them months in advance, right? Doodle poll, like whatever that is, right? Set it and be respectful of everyone's time by making sure that this is on the calendar and it's not last minute for folks. Get it on the calendar, stick with it, right? Another barrier that I hear all the time is we don't have time right now. Well, get in line, right? We all have time issues. Again, this is something that you must make time for. We make time for things that are most important. And oftentimes, right, when we strip everything away, we're so deeply in the weeds of the organization, and we need to back that train up, right? And elevate and make time for the things that are most important for us. So again, it's a scheduling and time management issue. So tips for success, right? How do we make sure that when we're investing our time and our talent and our resources in terms of financial resources, that this is the most successful process possible? we need to make strategic planning feel special because it is. Hold this session off-site if possible. Provide food, provide snacks, provide lunch, provide relational building time. Make people feel comfortable and demonstrate your gratitude for them being there because we can't give them their time back. Ensure that all voices are heard during this session and give everyone a chance to feel empowered by being an active part of the discussions and planning. Keep the momentum going. A lot of times after the planning session, a lot of follow-up work is needed to complete the formal plan and create action steps. Keep that work going by working with your consultant, assign tasks, and follow up as necessary. Keep this plan alive, right, by not only having it drive board agendas, but ensuring there's regular updates at board meetings and staff meetings. Regularly review your process and make adjustments and celebrate the wins, and share your version of a plan with stakeholders. So a couple pieces, at least from my perspective, with regard to stakeholders. If you are in the business of serving others, stakeholders should be involved in the strategic planning process. And what I mean by that is, when I'm involved with strategic planning, I will ask for a list of stakeholders, both folks that like you and folks that don't, right? Donors, sponsors, volunteers, past and former board and staff members, right? Volunteers, others that work with you in the community. And they are involved in giving feedback in advance of that strategic planning session. It's important for board and staff to hear what the community's perceptions are of you and the work you're doing. You can take that feedback under advisement for sure, right? At the end of the day, it's your responsibility to actually move your business forward. But as a way to close the loop with those that have given feedback, I make sure that every single one of those folks that participated actually receives a copy of your plan. It's an important piece for follow-up, but it also allows them to be ambassadors and cheerleaders of you in the next 3 years as you're implementing and executing your plan, right? Again, I get asked all the time if organizations really need a strategic plan, and the answer is almost always yes, right? It's just that important. And it's an almost always and not 100% because oftentimes some of our small baby nano nonprofits just don't have their feet under them enough yet to be able to get past a week's worth of work, right? Never mind being able to plan out 3 years. So I would give it a 90 to 95% of organizations need a plan. And if it's not a 3-year plan, it at least is something on paper that says, hey, these are the things we're going to focus on over the next 3, 6, or 12 months in order for us to be successful. The key, regardless, right, regardless of how old or young you are, regardless of how simple or robust your plan is to keep the plan alive and use it as an active document to guide and inform your path forward. So remember, 3 takeaways from today. Just being really clear as to what strategic planning is and isn't, benefits and barriers of strategic planning, and your tips for success. Make sure to follow me on your favorite streaming platforms, including YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Many of you know that I'm no longer on Facebook or Instagram. Yep, I'm only using online platforms that work for me. So for additional resources and tools, follow me on LinkedIn. You can also check out my website at inciteconsultinggroup.com. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great week.